The lunch crowd at Hannah's kitchen had thinned by 2:30, which was usually when Nia Carter exhaled. Not a dramatic exhale, not a visible one, just the kind that lived somewhere between her shoulders and her spine, the quiet release of a woman who had been carrying tables, carrying orders, carrying the weight of 4 hours on her feet without a single break, and was now finally, briefly, allowed to breathe. She wiped down the counter near the window and let her eyes wander across the dining room. 3 tables still occupied. A couple sharing bibimbap near the door. 2 college girls splitting a single order of tteokbokki, picking at it like a science experiment. And then, at table 7, in the far corner closest to the wall, a man she had not seen come in. She was sure she had not seen him come in. Hannah's kitchen was a small Korean lunch spot on the edge of Midtown, the kind of place that regulars called a hidden gem and food bloggers had not yet discovered, which was exactly why the owner, Mrs. Park, kept the signage modest and the portion sizes generous. It seated 32 comfortably, 40 uncomfortably, and it smelled permanently of doenjang and sesame, which Nia had initially found overwhelming on her first day 8 months ago and now found completely invisible to her senses. She knew every corner of this restaurant. She had not seen that man come in. He was sitting alone at table 7 with nothing in front of him. No water, no menu, no phone. His hands were folded on the table, and he was staring at something that was not in the room, something far past the wall, something only visible to him. He was wearing a dark gray shirt, no tie, no jacket, but the cut of the shirt said money the way certain things quietly say what they are without announcing it. His jaw was sharp and still. His hair, dark and slightly longer than a corporate cut, had the kind of effortless weight that looked expensive even in a modest light. He looked like he was somewhere between 40 and the far edge of exhaustion. Nia tucked her cloth into her apron and picked up a water glass from the station. She had a rule she had built for herself over years of service work, not a rule anyone taught her, but one she had arrived at through observation. People do not always come to restaurants to eat. Sometimes they come because they cannot stand being wherever they were before. The food is secondary. The transaction, the small ritual of being brought something, of being attended to without having to explain yourself, that was the real thing they were purchasing. She recognized that look on him. She had worn it herself, on the days after her mother passed, when she used to sit in a diner on 125th Street and order coffee. She did not drink just to be around the sound of other people living. Nia approached table 7 with the water glass and set it down gently. No performance, no sharp placement of silverware. "We haven't gotten your order yet," she said. "Take your time, no rush." He blinked. It was a slow blink, the kind that happens when a person has been pulled back from very far away. His eyes, when they focused on her, were a deep, steady brown, tired, but present now. "I apologize," he said. His English was precise, lightly accented, each word placed like it had been selected. "I did not realize I had been sitting this long." "It's a good corner for that," Nia said. "People always pick that table when they need to disappear for a minute." Something moved across his face. Not a smile, the territory just before a smile. "Is that what I look like?" "You look like a man who has had a very long day before it even became afternoon," she said, and then she caught herself, because that was more honest than was professionally required, and she softened it with a practical question. "Can I bring you a menu? Or if you know what you want, I can take the order now." He looked at the table for a moment. "Whatever you think is good," he said. "I am not particular today." That sentence landed differently than it seemed. Not like an indifferent customer passing the decision off. More like someone who had been making decisions for so long, at such a scale, that the relief of having a small one made for them was genuinely welcome. Nia brought him the himul sunjubu, the spicy soft tofu stew with seafood that Mrs. Park made from a recipe she had never written down and claimed she never would. She brought it with a small plate of banchan, 4 little dishes of pickled things and seasoned things arranged like an afterthought, even though nothing in Mrs. Park's kitchen was ever an afterthought. She set it down and started to step back. "What is your name?" he asked. "Nia." "Nia," he said it once carefully, like he was making sure he had it right. Thank you, Nia. She nodded and returned to the counter. She watched him from her peripheral vision the way experienced servers do, not staring, not hovering, just a soft awareness that allows you to catch the moment a water glass empties or a dish goes untouched. He ate slowly, not with the deliberateness of someone savoring food, with the deliberateness of someone who had forgotten how to be unhurried and was now remembering. After 15 minutes, she passed the table to check on the couple near the door and paused on her way back. How is it? Honest, he said. She tilted her head slightly. The food, he said. It tastes honest, like someone made it because they wanted to, not because they had to. Mrs. Park would appreciate that, Nia said. She's been making that stew since before I was born. The corner of his mouth moved. There it was, the beginning of something. You grew up near here, he asked. Harlem, she said. Moved down here for work, you. A pause, brief but deliberate. Seoul, he said. Though I have been here long enough that I sometimes forget which city feels like home. She leaned slightly against the edge of the neighboring empty table, not sitting, just reducing the formality of standing over him. Does that bother you? She asked. Not having one place that feels like home. He looked at her with a directness that was not aggressive, but was complete, the kind of look that assessed and arrived at something simultaneously. Not always, he said, but today, yes. Then it's a good day to sit in a corner and eat honest food, she said. And this time he smiled, not the beginning of one, a full one, quiet and real, the kind that lived in the eyes more than the mouth. It changed his face entirely, softened the jaw, unwound something around the corners. He looked in that moment like a man who had not smiled in several days and had just remembered how. Nia did not know his name yet. She did not know what he did, or what he owned, or what the 7 missed calls on the phone he had turned face down on the table were about. She did not know that outside, parked along the block in 2 black vehicles with tinted windows, 4 men in earpieces were waiting with the kind of patience that is only possible when you are paid extremely well for it. She just knew he needed a moment. So she gave him. His name, she would learn later, meant nothing to her in that moment, which was perhaps the only reason the next 40 minutes unfolded the way they did. If she had known, she would have stood straighter, spoken more carefully, calculated every word the way people do when they sense they are being observed by someone with power. She would have become a version of herself that was smaller and more managed, the version that surfaces automatically around people who make you aware of your own position in a room. But she did not know. So she was just Nia. He finished the stew, and she cleared the bowl without ceremony and asked if he wanted anything else. He said barley tea if she had it, and she did, because Mrs. Park kept a pot warm on the back burner from noon until close, and Nia brought it in a plain ceramic cup the color of old sand. She was refilling the water glasses at the couple's table near the door when she heard the college girls at the other table trying to split a check that the math did not cooperate with, and she walked over and sorted it out in under 2 minutes, which was the kind of quiet competence that went unnoticed by most people and unacknowledged by almost everyone. But when she passed table 7 again, she noticed that the man, Seungwoo, though she still did not know that, had been watching. You are very good at this, he said. At what? Reading people before they have finished telling you what they need. She considered that for a moment. You spend enough time watching people, you start to notice patterns, she said. Everybody gives off signals. Most people are just too distracted to read them. What signals did I give off? He asked. The question was direct but not challenging. He was genuinely curious. The way a person is curious when they suspect the answer will be accurate and they have decided they can handle accuracy. Nia pulled out the chair across from him, not sitting, just resting one hand on the back of it. You came in and sat without asking for anything, she said. Most people, first thing they do is flag someone down, ask for a menu, claim the space. You just sat. That usually means a person is not here for the food. They are here because they needed somewhere to be that was not where they just came from. He was quiet. You also turned your phone face down, she continued. Which means there are people trying to reach you, and you have made a decision, at least for right now, not to be reached. And the way you were staring at the wall when I first saw you, that was not a man resting. That was a man having a conversation in his head that the other person does not know they are part of. A long pause settled between them, not uncomfortable, the kind of pause that follows something true. You are not wrong, he said finally. I usually am not, she said, with a small, unboastful confidence that came from years of trusting her own observations. Not about people. She started to step back toward the counter, and he spoke again. How long have you worked here? 8 months, she said. Before this, I was at a hotel restaurant downtown for 2 years. Before that, I was putting myself through a hospitality management program and picking up shifts wherever they would have me. Hospitality management, he repeated. I know, she said, and there was something dry and self-aware in her voice. And here I am refilling teacups. The program was good. The job market had other opinions. He looked at her with a steady attention that she registered, but did not quite interpret. What did you want to do with it? He asked. The degree. Events coordination. High-end, corporate side. I did an internship with a firm in the Flatiron district. I was good at it. She paused. They did not have a permanent position at the end, and the firm I interviewed with after that wanted 5 years' experience for an entry-level role, which is a particular kind of math that does not add up. It is a common arithmetic, he said. Painfully common, she agreed. He looked down at the barley tea for a moment, and then back up at her. You did not have to tell me any of that, he said. You asked, she said simply, and you actually wanted to know the answer. That is rarer than it sounds. She picked up the empty banchan dishes from his table and stacked them in her arm. Sir, she said, because she still had nothing else to call him, can I ask you something? He nodded. When you came in here today and sat down and turned your phone over, whatever it was you were trying to get away from, even just for an hour. She met his eyes directly. I hope the hour helped. He looked at her for a long moment. It did, he said quietly, more than I expected. She nodded once, professionally, warmly, and carried the dishes back to the kitchen. Mrs. Park was at the prep station, slicing scallions with a speed that suggested she had been doing it since birth. She glanced up at Nia when she came through the door. The man in the corner, Mrs. Park said without preamble. He has been sitting there a long time. He is fine, Nia said, just needed a pause. Mrs. Park looked at her with the particular expression she reserved for moments she found both amusing and self-evident. You gave him one. I gave him tea and conversation, Nia said. Nothing unusual. You gave him the good tea, Mrs. Park said, nodding at the back burner. The one I do not usually bring out until later. Nia had not thought about it consciously. She had just reached for the best option. He seemed like he needed the good tea, she said. Mrs. Park said nothing further, which, from Mrs. Park, was its own kind of acknowledgement. Nia pushed back through the kitchen door, and almost immediately the sound changed. Not dramatically, not with any announcement, but the quality of the air in the room shifted in that subtle, instinctive way that makes the back of your neck prickle before your brain has caught up with the reason why. The front door had opened. 2 men came in first. Large, quiet, moving with the particular economy of people trained to take up space efficiently and visibly without appearing threatening, though the effect was, in fact, quietly threatening. Dark suits, earpieces, eyes that swept the room in under 3 seconds and landed, without hesitation, on table 7. Behind them came 2 more, posting near the entrance, hands loose at their sides. The couple near the door looked up, and then looked away quickly in the way people do, when they sense something above their pay grade is occurring. The first 2 men walked toward table 7 with the directness of people who have done this many times, in many restaurants, in many cities, and find it completely routine. The man at the table, the man Nia had brought honest food and good tea to, the man she had talked to about job markets and reading people, and the particular relief of an hour that belongs to no one but yourself, looked up at them with an expression of complete unsurprise. He said something in Korean, low and brief. One of the men responded, nodded once toward the door. He reached into his shirt pocket and set something on the table. Then he rose from the chair, straightened once, and the man who had looked tired and human and quietly lost 40 minutes ago became, in a single moment, something else entirely. The posture, the stillness, the way the room seemed to reorganize itself slightly around him as he stood. Nia stood at the counter with a water pitcher in her hand and felt the specific, stomach-dropping sensation of a person who has just realized that the landscape they were standing in was entirely different from the one they thought they were standing in. She watched him walk toward the door, flanked, unhurried, with the composed and unreachable quality of a man who was, at every moment of his life outside this 1 hour, completely surrounded by the infrastructure of extreme wealth. At the door he paused. He turned back and looked at her across the length of the restaurant, past the empty tables, past the college girls who had gone very still, past Mrs. Park who had materialized silently in the kitchen doorway with her arms folded. He looked at Nia specifically. And he nodded, deliberately, the way you nod at someone you intend to remember. Then he was gone. Nia set the water pitcher down on the counter. She walked to table 7. On the white surface, next to the empty cup of barley tea, was a business card. Matte black, no logo, just a name in clean silver text, a number, and below it in smaller print, 3 words that she read twice before they assembled into meaning. Choi Seung-woo, and below the number, Choi Industries, Seoul. She turned the card over. On the back, in handwriting that was precise and unhurried, 4 words. You have good instincts. She kept the card in the pocket of her apron for the rest of the shift. Not in her wallet, not tucked behind her phone. In her apron pocket, where she could feel the edge of it every time she moved, a small, solid reminder that the afternoon had actually happened and was not something her tired mind had assembled from wishful thinking and too much barley tea. Mrs. Park said nothing about it directly. But at the end of the shift, when Nia was clocking out and pulling on her jacket, the older woman appeared from the back with a container of leftover sunjubu wrapped in foil and set it on the counter without explanation. For tonight, Mrs. Park said. I am fine, Mrs. Park. I know you are fine. She pushed the container an inch closer. Take it anyway. Nia took it. She had learned in 8 months that Mrs. Park expressed most of her warmer sentiments through food transfers, and that arguing with the impulse was both futile and ungracious. She walked home through the early evening, the city doing what the city always does at that hour, loud and indifferent and relentlessly alive, and she turned the afternoon over in her mind the way you turn a strange coin, examining it from different angles, testing its weight. Choi Industries. She had looked it up in the back office before clocking out. A quick search on her phone with the kind of focused apprehension of someone who already suspects the answer is going to be larger than they are prepared for. It was larger than she was prepared for. Choi Industries was a Seoul-headquartered conglomerate with divisions in commercial real estate, hospitality infrastructure, logistics technology, and private equity. Founded by Choi Seung-woo's father, restructured and expanded aggressively under Choi Seung-woo himself beginning at age 31, when he took over following his father's stroke. Valued, according to the most recent estimates she could find, at somewhere north of $4 billion, though the articles noted that the private nature of several key holdings made accurate valuation difficult. There was a photo from a business publication, 18 months old. He was standing outside a building in Seoul in a dark suit, not looking at the camera, looking at something to the left of it, and the expression on his face in that photo was the same expression she had first seen at table 7. The same somewhere else quality, the same distance behind the eyes. She had given that man tea from the back burner and told him he looked like he was having a conversation in his head the other person did not know about. She stood outside her apartment building on 118th Street and laughed once, quietly, into the evening air. Then she went upstairs, ate the sunjubu, and told herself to forget it. She did not forget it. 3 days passed. She worked her shifts. She carried plates and cleared tables and recited the daily specials and split checks, and did all the things her hands knew how to do while her mind kept returning, without permission, to a matte black card in a kitchen drawer and 4 handwritten words. You have good instincts. On the 4th day, at 11:40 in the morning, 20 minutes before the lunch rush, her phone rang with a number she did not recognize. A New York area code, but not a number in her contacts. She almost let it go to voicemail. She was tying her apron. She answered. Is this Nia Carter? The voice was a woman's. Efficient, professional, with a faint trace of an accent she could not immediately place. It is, Nia said carefully. My name is Jae-yeon Han. I am the executive coordinator for Mr. Choi Seung-woo. He asked me to contact you. Do you have a few minutes? Nia sat down on the bench in the back hallway of Hana's kitchen, where the staff kept their bags and coats, which was fortunate because her legs had made a quiet executive decision that standing was no longer their priority. Yes, she said, I have a few minutes. Jae-yeon was precise and warm in a way that felt genuine rather than performed. She explained, without excessive preamble, that Mr. Choi had recently acquired a boutique hotel property in Midtown Manhattan, a 47-room property that was undergoing a complete operational restructuring and was scheduled to reopen in 4 months. He was building a team. Specifically, he was looking for someone to lead guest experience and events coordination for the property. He had, Jae-yeon said, asked that Nia be contacted first. The silence that followed was the kind that has texture. I am a server at a small restaurant, Nia said, because she felt honesty was the only reasonable response to something this unreasonable. Mr. Choi is aware of your current position, Jae-yeon said. He is also aware that you hold a degree in hospitality management and have a background in events coordination. He believes, and I am quoting him directly, that credentials confirm what observation has already established. Nia pressed her free hand flat against her knee to keep it still. I would need to know more about the role, she said. The scope, the compensation, the reporting structure. Of course, Jae-yeon said, and Nia could hear the faint approval in it, the recognition of someone who does not simply say yes before understanding what they are saying yes to. I will send you a full brief. We would like to arrange a formal meeting at your convenience. No pressure, no obligation, simply a conversation. All right, Nia said. One more thing, Jae-yeon added. Mr. Choi asked me to tell you something personally. A brief pause. He said, the hour helped more than you know. He thought you should know that. Nia was quiet for a moment. Tell him I am glad, she said. She sat in the back hallway for another 2 minutes after the call ended, not moving, just letting the reality of it settle into her bones like warmth after a long cold. Then she stood up, straightened her apron, and went out to take the lunch orders. She did not tell Mrs. Park that day. She told her the following morning, before the restaurant opened, over the prep counter with 2 cups of tea between them. Mrs. Park listened without interrupting, which was unusual. When Nia finished, the older woman was quiet for a moment. You were kind to him, Mrs. Park said finally. Not because of who he was, because of who you are. She picked up her cup. That is why it matters. Nia looked at her. You knew, she said. You knew who he was when he came in. Mrs. Park's expression was serenely uninformative. He has eaten here before, she said. Quietly, he prefers it that way. She sipped her tea. I did not tell you because I did not want you to treat him differently. Nia stared at her for a long moment. Mrs. Park. You would have been too careful, the older woman said simply, and careful was not what he needed. Nia thought about that. She thought about the way she had leaned against the neighboring table, easy and unguarded. The things she had said directly, without calculation. The good tea she had brought without overthinking it. You are impossible, Nia said. I am practical, Mrs. Park corrected. There is a difference. The meeting with Choi Seung-woo happened 10 days later. in a clean, spare conference room on the 31st floor of a building on Park Avenue that looked from the outside like 10,000 other midtown buildings, and from the inside like somewhere decisions of consequence were made routinely. He was already in the room when she arrived. No security visible, though she understood now that visible and present were separate categories where he was concerned. He was standing at the window, not looking out of it, just standing near it the way people do when they are thinking and need a neutral direction to face. He turned when she came in, and this time the tiredness she had seen at table 7 was still present but quieter, less acute, like weather that had passed its peak. "Nia," he said. "Mr. Choi," she said. He gestured to the chair across from him, and they sat, and for a moment neither of them acknowledged the strangeness of this room relative to that corner table. The distance traveled between a ceramic cup of barley tea and a 31st floor conference room with a view of Park Avenue. Then he said, "I should tell you something before we discuss the role." She waited. "That afternoon," he said, "I had come from a board meeting that had lasted 4 hours. There were decisions made in that room that I did not agree with and could not prevent, not fully. I left and I walked and I ended up at that restaurant." He paused. "I was not looking for anything. I was looking for nowhere to be for a moment." "I know," she said. "I told you that." "You did," he said, and the quiet smile she had seen once before returned to his face. "And then you sat with me anyway, not because of what I could offer you. You did not know what I could offer you. You sat with me because you saw a person who needed a moment and you gave it to him." Nia held his gaze steadily. "That is not unusual," she said. "That is just paying attention." "In my life," he said, "it is unusual, more than you might think." The conversation that followed lasted 90 minutes. They talked about the hotel, about her vision for guest experience, about the gap she had identified across her years of service work between what hospitality looked like on paper and what guests actually needed. She spoke without performing. He listened without managing. It felt, improbably, like the continuation of a conversation that had started at table 7. She took the job. Not immediately. She asked for the brief in writing, reviewed it over a weekend, asked Jae-yeon 6 specific questions, received 6 specific answers, and then called back on Monday morning and said yes. Her first day at the property was a gray Tuesday in October. The hotel was mid-renovation, all exposed edges and scaffolding and potential, the way things look in the stage before they become what they are going to be. Choi Seung-woo was there when she arrived, not in a suit this time, but in dark trousers and a simple jacket, walking the floor with a contractor, talking through a detail she could not hear from the entrance. He saw her come in and cross the room. "Ready," he said. She looked around the space, the high unfinished ceilings, the light coming through the uncovered windows, the particular silence of a building that was waiting. "Yes," she said. And she was. What grew between them did not grow quickly. It did not announce itself. It arrived the way certain things arrive, not with a moment you can point to later, but with an accumulation. Shared mornings reviewing event proposals and disagreements about vendor choices, and the evening he brought her tea from the office kitchen without asking, because he had learned, quietly, that she always wanted tea at 6 o'clock, and she had looked at the cup, and then at him, and something shifted that neither of them named yet, but both of them felt. It was honest, like the food had been, made because it was real, not because it was supposed to be. A year after she had set a cup of water in front of a stranger at table 7, Nia Carter was standing in the hotel lobby the night of the reopening, watching the space she had poured herself in to receive its first guests. The lights were right. The staff was calm. The details she had fought for were visible in the way good details are, not loudly, but in the way a room feels like itself. She felt a presence beside her, and did not have to look to know who it was. "You did this," Choi Seung-woo said quietly. "We did this," she said. He looked at her the way he had looked at her across the restaurant that first afternoon, specific and steady, the way a person looks when they are seeing something clearly and intend to keep seeing it. "Yes," he said, "we did." Outside, the city moved on, indifferent and relentless, the way it always did. Inside, in a hotel that smelled of fresh paint and possibility, two people stood together in a light they had both, in their separate ways, been a long time finding.